Hello, good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing fine. Everybody hears me. Welcome to yet another IWCN info session. For those who are unfamiliar with the International Welcome Center North, we are a one-stop shop expat center covering the provinces of Groningen, Drenthe, and Friesland. And we provide formalities, information, and social activities for the internationals living in the northern part of the Netherlands. Today's session is about buying a house in Groningen. Thank you all for joining us. We have a special host today who will be hosting. We have Kira Steenstra accompanying me today, and she will be telling you more about our speakers.
Yes, thank you, Jonna, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Kira, and I'm part of the marketing team of Expat Mortgages, and I will be your host during this webinar. And this webinar is organized together with the International Welcome Center in the North, Expat Housing Network, and Expat Mortgages. And for the presentation, Erwin Berghuis from Expat Mortgages will start by telling you everything you need to know about securing a mortgage and about financing your home. After that, Philippe van den Broek from Expat Housing Network will walk you through the process of purchasing a house. And the presentation will take about 30 till 45 minutes. And you can ask your questions at any time in the Q&A box. After the presentation, I will join live again, and then I will assist Philippe and Erwin by reading your questions and getting the best answers for you. So that was all the information about the webinar. You see Philippe and Erwin in your screens right now, and I would like to give the word to Erwin. Good afternoon, Erwin. The floor is all yours.
Yes, Akira, thank you very much. Or should I say, tieke dank? That needs a little explanation probably, because Kira is from Friesland originally. We have 12 provinces in the Netherlands, and Groningen and Friesland are 2 of them. And in the old days, there was a little bit of rivalry between Groningen and Friesland. Nowadays it's better, and next Sunday is going to be the football match between Heerenveen and FC Groningen. So we're already teasing each other a little bit with the teams and about the football match next Sunday. So that's why the tieke dank, Kira. It means thank you in Frisian. Then my international experience. You see these beautiful buildings. Was wondering if you know where it is. It could be Dubai. It could be Sydney, Melbourne, maybe. But this is Valencia, the beautiful city in the eastern part of Spain. I spent here almost a year some time ago, before the Facebook time and everything. So I still remember when I was standing there at the train station with my luggage and my mochila and trying to get a house there. First week I was in a hotel. After a few days I met some very nice people and I could join them in their apartment. So I had a very wonderful time the next year. I still have contact with the people that I live with then. So I think I know a little bit what it's like when you go to another country and try to build up a life over there. Well, my name is Erwin Berghuis. Kira already told you. I'm a mortgage advisor and area manager of Northern Netherlands, which is Groningen, Friesland and Drenthe. I've been working in this field for about 20 years now. I live in the city of Groningen in the southern part. As I told, I am a football fan, so next Sunday is going to be very nice. I've bought a house twice myself in Groningen, so I know a little bit what you have to do and what you come across with when you buy a house and going to arrange a mortgage. So I think I know a little bit about the feeling. Well, first step from the process, it's all about preparing yourself well. Preparation is key. Eligibility and financing your future home starts with what can you do, what is your budget, where do you want to live, how much savings do you have, and that's the first step for a future buy. First of all, the personal assessment. What every mortgage provider wants to know is who are you and if you have credits or debts. Of course, they all want to know your passport, where you're from. If you're non-EU, you also have to have a residence permit. If you have a passport from the EU, that's enough. And they also want to know if you have credits or debts, and the debts are registered in Holland at the BKR, the Bureau of Credit Registration. So if you have a loan, if it's for a credit card or if it's for a loan or for a car loan, for example, it is registered over there. And every bank or mortgage provider will check over there. I say this because if you have a loan, it influences you the maximum amount of mortgage that you can have. If you have, for example, a car loan of 10,000 euros, it will reduce your maximum amount. It can reduce your maximum mortgage with 60,000 euros, which is a lot, I think. If you lived here before you came to Holland in Austria, Italy, Belgium, or Germany, the mortgage provider will check in these countries as well. Then secondly, the mortgage property assessment. What is important in the Netherlands is if you buy a house, the mortgage provider will want to know what's the value of the house. And it has to be done by an independent valuator. It cannot be done by the real estate agent that helps you or of the seller. It has to be done by an independent someone. What you can do in Holland, you can have a mortgage up to 100% of the market value of the house. On top of the market value, you have the so-called closing costs. And the closing cost will be 5 to 6% of the market value of the house. So if you buy a house of 300,000 euros, you pay between 15 and 18,000 euros on top of that you have to have as savings. There's good news though. If you're under 35 and the market value of the house is less than 400,000 euros, you don't have to pay the 2% transfer tax. That means that you have to have 4 to 5% of closing costs. Philip later on in the presentation will tell you a little bit more about the closing costs, what they consist of. Then the financial assessment. What is important in securing a mortgage is how much do you earn? And it's all about gross annual income. If you work for a company, then you have your salary slip, you multiply it with 12, so you always have some holiday allowances. Sometimes you have, for example, a bonus. If you add them all up, then you have your gross annual income. If you buy the house together, you can add up both your income and then multiply it by 5. That's a little bit of rule of thumb. If you multiply it by 5, then you have your maximum mortgage that you can have if you don't have any loans. So, for example, if you have a gross annual income together or individually of 80,000 euros, you will have a mortgage. You can have a mortgage of 400,000 euros. So times 5 your gross annual income. Then the mortgage types. There are 2 types of mortgages: linear and annuity. Linear, you pay off a little bit more in the beginning, and with annuity, you pay the same amount of money every month. The linear, you start higher and you end lower with your monthly payment. And after about 14 to 15 years, you pay less on your monthly payment in the linear. The mortgage has to be paid back in 30 years. If you want to do it earlier, of course you can, but that will increase your monthly payments. Then interest rate. Well, I made this presentation already before, like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and then it was true. Interest rates have never been so low as they are today. Since then, well, we probably all know the reasons why. High inflation at the moment in the Netherlands, well, in Europe in general. Gas prices are going up. It all has to do with the situation in Ukraine. So since then, since 6 to 7 weeks, the interest rates have gone up. But still, if I look at the history, they are quite low compared to if you look at the 10 years ago, for example. And what will going to happen with the interest rates, that's of course very difficult to predict. I think it's now a little bit stable at the moment, but of course it's very difficult to predict how much it will be in 1 year, for example. The higher the interest rate, will it have an effect on the house prices? Of course, Philip can tell something about that as well. For now, what the economists expect is that for this year, the house prices will increase between 10 to 15% again, like the last years. So for now, we don't see any influence as far as the house prices are concerned, except that they are going up again. That's what we expect. So in that case, yeah, it's the situation on the house market is still that too many people want too few houses. So that's why the interest rates, the house prices keep on rising. Then you have the poll. So Kira, if you please can take over again.
Yes.
You have a question.
I will put the poll in right now. Let's see. And the question is, what is the average house price in Groningen? Is it 315,000 euros, 335,000 euros, or 365,000 euros? So we're going to wait a bit for the answers, and then Erwin will tell you more about it. Okay, I think that was it, because we have 12 votes, and that's it. So Erwin, I have the results for you.
Yes, here I am again.
Yes. Well, we can see that most of the people, 50%, are saying that the average house price in Groningen is 365,000 euros. So, yep.
Good to know. I'll just again next to the next. Okay, that's good. Well, the price is 335, so it's just in the middle. So it's not 365 like many people thought. So probably it's a little bit cheaper than you thought. That's why Groningen is popular with people trying to buy a house over here, because if you compare it to other larger cities in the Netherlands like Utrecht or Amsterdam, Groningen is quite reasonably priced, so I think it's good to know that people think that houses are more expensive than they really are. So I suggest come to us and live in the beautiful city of Groningen. And the market situation at this moment, this picture is of the Grote Markt. It's just in the middle of the center. It's the town hall, and on the left side you have the bars and the cafes and the restaurants. This is one of the hottest places in Groningen city. And the market situation, as far as the houses are concerned, I think it was really overheated, like the last quarter of 2021. Many people trying to get a house, many people bidding and overbidding. And what I see the last weeks, months, maybe it has to do with the interest rates as well. Philip can tell something about that as well. But I see a little bit stabilization in the house market. There are not so many people wanting to buy a house. There are less viewers. Still, houses are really being sold quite fast still. But I think the market was overheated. It's still hot. It's still heated, but it's not so overheated as it used to be. And what I do think, especially as an international, as an expat, if you gather the right people around you to help you looking for a house, in which neighborhood you want to live, what are your demands? Do you want to live close to the GSV, to the school? Do you want to live close to the sport accommodations? Do you want to live close to the city center of Groningen? If you have the local people that helping you with that, I think you have a serious chance of buying the property that you want to. I see in practice, if you have people that will help you with that, you have a higher chance of buying a property that you want. Then the benefits of buying versus renting. Well, if you're planning to stay here for a shorter period of time, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 years, renting is probably the best, because you're more flexible. If you want to leave again because you're going to another country to work, with renting you have 1 month and you can get out of the house again. And if you buy a house, then it's more difficult to sell it very quickly. So if you want to stay here shorter, I think most of the time people rent their houses. If you want to stay here a longer period of time, you might consider buying a house. Of course, the initial costs, there are initial costs, but if I compare it buying versus renting, if you rent a house for 6 years for 1,000 euros a month, which is quite normal in the Netherlands, in Groningen at this moment, then in 6 years you would have paid 70,000 euros to your landlord for renting the house. Well, if you buy a house of 300,000 euros, the mortgage is also about 1,100 euros, 1,100 euros, and part of it, half of it, is paying off your debt. So that means if you have a mortgage of 300,000 in 6 years, the mortgage is only 250,000 euros. So that means that you have saved 50,000 euros. If the house prices will go up, and 10 to 50% is quite high, of course, but if they go up 3% per year, for example, then a house which is now has a value of 300,000 is 360,000 euros in 6 years. So instead of paying 70,000 euros to your landlord, your house has increased to 350, 360, whereas your mortgage has gone down to 250,000 euros. So what I see around, and the people that I speak that bought a house recently or years ago, in general, if you stay longer in a certain place, in general, buying a house is a very good investment. Then, of course, there are always risk to it when you buy a house and when you get a mortgage. The first risk that you have to consider is every mortgage provider. If you have a mortgage, then they want you to have a opstalverzekering. It's the house insurance. If your house burns down, you need insurance to build it up again. It's mandatory. You have to have it. The premium for an opstalverzekering, house insurance, is about 20 to 30 euros a month. Normally, it depends a little bit, of course, on the property you have, but you need it. So if you buy a house, you have a mortgage, you have to take these costs into consideration as well. But I think between 20 and 30 euros per month, you should have a house insurance. Then secondly, you might consider a life insurance, because if something happens to you, you pass away, you die, what happens then to the house and to the mortgage? Especially in the first years, if you buy a house of 300,000 euros, you have the mortgage of 300,000 euros. And if you pass away within 1 or 2 years, it can be wise to get a life insurance to cover, for example, 100 or 200,000 euros. So if you pass away, then the people that inherit for you won't have a problem of, well, what to do with the house, because if they have, for example, 100,000 euros, they can live in the house, or they can pay for some time. So if you buy a house, also consider a life insurance. Of course, an advisor will help you with that, determining what you want and what are your exact needs. And for a life insurance, if you have the premium, of course, it depends on your age. It depends on the amount that you want to insure. It depends on your health condition. But normally what I see around is a life insurance between 10 and 25 euros per month. You should have a life insurance. But again, if you buy a house, consider a life insurance, and then advice will help you with that as well. Then the mortgage itself, well, this is what I like. This is where my heart starts beating, because I like to look at mortgages and which suits best for the clients that we have. There are many mortgage providers in the Netherlands, and you can go to the bank directly, and they will offer you their mortgage and their conditions. If you would go to the intermediate channel, and Expat Mortgages is an intermediate channel, we're an intermediary, we can compare. So if you need a mortgage, we can compare with different kind of banks and mortgage providers. So we can check for the best conditions and the best interest rates. And for your insight, there are big mortgage providers that only work through the intermediate channel. You cannot go to them directly, but you have to do it through the intermediate channel, which have very good conditions and interest rates at the moment. So if you consider a mortgage, you can go to the bank directly, or you can consider the intermediate channel. Then my team where I work with at the moment, we are with, I think, 65 people at the moment. We are the headquarters is in Amsterdam, but we are nationwide. We have our advisors. We have in the south, in the east, in the west, in the north nowadays. So if you consider buying a house in Rotterdam or in Eindhoven or in Maastricht, one of my colleagues can help you there as well. With local knowledge, they can help you finding a house and getting a mortgage for you. We've been doing this work for about 17, 18 years, I think, but the company exists already. I think we have had all questions before already, so maybe you can surprise me today with a question that we haven't heard before, and maybe we don't have the answer. So please, after the presentation with the Q&A, if you think of a very good question, I hope I can give the answer, or I will look it up for you. For so far, this is my part of the presentation. I will give it back to you, Kira. Thank you very much for your attention, and if there are any questions, please wait for me after the presentation.
Yes, well, thank you, Erwin, for sharing your knowledge. I thought it was very clear, and I learned a lot about the financial part. Also, the tip about life insurance was nice. Yeah, and right now I would like to give the word to Philippe from Expat Housing Network, and Philippe will take you through all the ins and outs of the entire buying process. So Philippe, if you're ready, I would like to give the word to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kira. Thank you, Erwin, as well, for the very nice explanations about financing a property. And of course, if you know everything about your budget, then you can go forward with looking at the market and looking at the dream house you are looking for. What I'm going to do with you is have a short introduction, but most of the time focus on the market info, the market drivers, and see what is the amount of savings that you need. 3 tips that I will give you to win in the current market, and of course also summarize the timeline of the buying process itself. First, to start with, that's where Erwin stopped, is of course we don't work on ourselves, we work with a team together with a lot of professionals. You see here the buying team with Expat Housing Network. You see Rafaela as well, who is living in Groningen and knows the market better than I do. And then you have also the other colleagues which support Rafaela and each other, of course. So whenever you're working with us, you will not work with one person, but you will work with a team together. This is the buying team. We also have a lot of rental coordinators. In total, we are with 30, 35 people in the meantime, spread a little bit over the country. A brief introduction to HN. We are not that traditional real estate agent. In the sense that we grew from a service business. Of course, we focus on properties. So that means that we have a lot of knowledge about buying and renting a place in the Netherlands, in different cities, as I just explained, and also in Groningen for sure. We charge a fixed fee. That's maybe one of the main differences that we have with other real estate agents, is that we don't charge a commission based on interest. Or a percentage of the purchase price, but yeah, we just say to you, for this package, it's a fixed fee of that amount, and it will not change in the process. And of course, as Erwin said as well, sometimes it can be very interesting that your partner also understands a little bit the process that you're going through. We work with a lot of people that or were born in another country than the Netherlands themselves and moved over here, so they know the total process, or Dutch people that lived abroad as well and understand what it is to settle in a country that is not your own. Where do we add value in the process, and where can we really assist you? Of course, the first point is really important. You will make an offer, and of course, you like your offer to be considered as being the winning offer. Therefore, selling agents, they know us, of course. We have a network. We do more than one deal in a year, of course. And they know that if we make an offer, that we looked at all the details of the file, and that it is likely that you will make the offer, not pull out, and sign the contract, yeah, in the end, and also sign the transfer deed, of course. So therefore, it gives a little bit of credibility to the offer that you make. That's our added value in the first place. We can also book sometimes viewings when it's no longer possible. That's yeah, for properties where everybody wants to have a viewing, then it can be that all slots are full, but that the selling agent still keeps some slots open for professionals as well to visit the property. Of course, at that moment, we can help you. We review, of course, the Dutch legal and property documents, very important, that all information related to the property will be in Dutch. And there, of course, we have the knowledge inside to, yeah, translate all that information to you, and also to see where maybe information is missing, or where there are some red flags that you for sure need to know before yeah, considering any offer. We help you to define the market value through market data. I'll come to that a little bit later. That is one of the key elements, of course, because you need to know, do I buy something at the value that it's worth in the market? And we will inform you in general about all rules and regulations that apply. Last thing that I like to mention is that we made some mistakes, our client made some mistakes. Of course, that means we have a lot of experience, and we like to help you avoiding making any of those mistakes when you go forward in the process. Then we come to the market information about the housing market. You see, this is the general numbers of the Netherlands, where we have an average price in 2021 around 438,000 for existing properties. You also see a balloon at the back of 466,000 euros that are the prices for new builds. So there is a difference in those prices. If you really want to know something about new builds, you can contact us as well, but the process will be a little bit different than for existing properties. So if you really want information about that, feel free to reach out to us. And then you see as well the average price in 2020. If you compare that, 2020, we had an average price 334, and end of 2021, an average price of 438. You see that on the graph as well, of course. There you see that most of the time the graph is going up, with some exceptions left and right. 2008-9, 2013-14, that was something else. But for sure, since 2020, we see a steep increase of the prices, and until now, that is still going on. Although we have to say that latest number shows that we are stabilizing a little bit in Q1 2022. Those figures were released today. But of course, it's always difficult to say, is it a trend that is going on, or is it just due to some circumstances, maybe the kind of properties that were sold, that we only see it in this quarter and not the rest of the year. If we then focus on the Groningen market, as was already mentioned by Erwin, then we see that the purchase price in Groningen is lower than in the average of the Netherlands at 335,000 euros. It doesn't mean that it's not a growing market or a market where prices go up, because you see as well that compared to 2020, the prices in 2021 went up also with 21% year to year compared. So you see a big increase in the average purchase price in Groningen last year. And that was mentioned as well by Erwin. There are not many houses on the market. You see that houses sold and houses for sale minus 21%, minus 29%. And that also has an effect on the sales time. A lot of people want to buy and they want to buy fast. So we see a sales time of average 21 days only in the market. So you see as well that if you want to buy a house in the Netherlands in general, but also in Groningen, you need to be fast. So for that as well, I always advise, go first to your mortgage advisor, be clear about your budget, and then step into the process, because the moment that you start viewings, you don't have the time to do your homework again. You need to know that upfront. And then very important, that is a little bit the market as it is on today. As I just explained, increasing prices and a tight market. Then we like to look at the market drivers. What is the reason that prices go up and go up that fast? The first thing we see is the fiscal benefits. We see that tax exemption is there. Normally you pay 2% transfer tax, but you can also be exempted if you buy a property that is below 400,000, and if you're younger than 35 years old. So that's very interesting, and then you don't pay any transfer tax in the market if you apply for that for the first time. We see interest rebates, also something that is very interesting, that your interest on your mortgage will be deducted from your salary before it gets taxed. No capital gains, so that means as well that if you have a house and you build up capital gains, the value goes up and you can sell it at a better price than you bought it yourself, then you will not be taxed on that, and you can use it for your next buy. So of course that gives a positive push on the prices. And then also the tax-free parent donation, which is ending, but where parents can give a tax-free donation to their children to invest in real estate as well. That's also something that makes that financing is not that expensive to say, and that it gives a positive push on the prices as we see the last couple of years. Of course, Erwin explained already, low interest rates also play a role. That is clear. If the money is cheap, of course, that will play a role. We see now that interest rates are increasing, but if we compare that in a historical perspective, then we see still that interests are not that high in general. And I believe still that it is a good moment, if you like, to buy something, to buy it right now and to buy it still at a good interest rate before they go up even further. What we see as well is that we have high rents. Erwin explained as well. So if you make the balance, I'm not going to do the exercise again, but if you see what are your monthly installments, that indeed, as Erwin explained, often it is very interesting to buy a property and not just give all the money to the landlord, but build up some equity yourself. And then, of course, also very important to take into account is the lack of supply. And that plays in the meantime on two fields if we see to the market. It's one that existing homeowners don't sell their house because they also need to move to somewhere else, of course, and they don't find a property themselves. So that means they don't sell and they wait until they find something themselves in the market. So it takes some time before they sell their house, and so we have a less supply in the market. And then the second thing is the new builds, which are also, of course, in the Netherlands we need like 1 million houses. That's a little bit the calculation that people make. We want to build like 100,000 houses every year, but until now we only achieved to build 70,000 houses on average. The Minister of Housing wants to do something about it. But of course, we have on today two things that play a role, is that not all people are available in the building market to build all those houses. And the second thing as well is that we see that the materials are getting very expensive. So it states that there is a lack of supply in the market, and it's a little bit of counterpower, as I can say, on low interest rates, because there are a lot of people that still need a house, need to find a house. And even when interest rates will go up, those people need to find a place. And so that lack of supply will give a counterpower to that. What we see is in specific also for Groningen, that they know they need to build new houses. So they are really busy with that, also making a plan to accelerate also the permits and everything going on, so that they can build around 22 new houses. You can read that by 2030. That is very important. A second thing that can also help you when entering the market is the national mortgage guarantee. If you have some specific questions on that, we can come to that later. But it means that you have some kind of guarantee that your mortgage is being paid off. Often you can have better interest rates as well than general in the market, but you need to pay a little cost before you start going forward with that national mortgage guarantee. And of course, you also need to take into account the limit that was pushed from 325,000 in 2021 to 355 in 2022. And then, as I said, the interest rates, of course, to have a close look at that, what are they going to do? I read an article about the professor, and maybe Erwin can give some comments about it later as well, that he said if we keep having interest rates below 3% in the market, then maybe there will be a little impact on housing prices, but not in the sense that it will change dramatically. If you go above 3%, of course, that is already a big step. Then there will be an impact. And of course, if we have like the old interest rates, like we had in the 80s and after that, above 5%, then it will have a major impact, of course, on the market. But interest rates important, but not the only driver as well, as I just explained. So to keep an eye on what that factor is going to do in the market going forward. And then I explained a little bit the market drivers, but you want to know as well, what do I need now in budget, in savings before I start my buying process? I will explain you two things. It's one is this element, it's the costs that you need, the closing fees as they are called. And then you can see them all on the screen. I go through it fast, but normally you have a transfer tax of 2% unless you're exempted. You have the notary that you need to pay, mortgage deed and transfer deed between 600 and 1,100. Those are estimations, also depends a little bit on the provider. You have the bank and the mortgage broker. You see as well, the bank is a little bit less expensive, but the mortgage broker, as Erwin just explained, can give you a lot more options in the market. And also for specific expat files, we see that mortgage broker often work faster and also work faster in having an approval on your mortgage. And that can play a role in bringing your bid to the market, but I come to that in a minute. Typical real estate agent, as I said, a percentage on the purchase price, we will charge a fixed fee for you. Depending on the package, that will be a smart or a complete package. That will be around 2,500 or 4,000 euros. We also have the appraiser that comes in, around 800 euros for an appraisal report necessary to approve your mortgage. Technical inspector, only if you keep that in your offer, 435 euros. The interpreter will be asked for by the notary. And then you have the bank guarantee if you don't pay the deposit yourself with your own savings. NHG also applies. And as I said, you will have to pay a little cost to step into that process of 0.6% of the mortgage amount that you need. So that are the main savings that you need as costs, that you need to calculate as costs. And that will be always between 5 and 6%, including that 2% transfer tax. The other parts will be also savings that you need if you really want to make an offer and want to make a good offer. And therefore, I give you some tips to see what you need to calculate as a rule of thumb, or how you need to look at those elements. And the first thing is the value of the property. I think everybody is always interested to know, we want to make an offer, we want to make a good offer, but how does that compare now to the value of the property? How do we need to go forward? So I made a little example for you. We have a property over here listed 395,000 euros. And we go to look in detail, asking price 395. We see that the market value of that property, and that's something that we calculate based on the references that we see in the market. And we also index a little bit with what our prices are doing last couple of months to have a good market value, and the market value that is likely to be approved and put into the report of the appraiser as well. We see it's 415 for this property, and we achieved to purchase it at the price of 435,000 euros. And what you see is we have a difference of 40K between asking and purchase price. But what you see is as well that we only have a difference of 20K between the market value and the final purchase price. I think that is important because we get a lot of times, we get the question, how much do we need to overbid on the asking price? If you ask me, that is not too relevant. What is relevant is the market value of the property. That is also the value where you can get a mortgage for 100% of that amount, so of the 415. And then you see what you like to add on that market value because you really want to secure that specific place for you. Yeah. So here you see 20K. I like to put another example because it's the same house that we're looking at, but here the asking price was put at 375 and not 395,000 euros. It's just the selling agent or the seller that can decide to do that because there are no specific rules that apply. And then you see that the difference is not 40K, but 60K with the purchase price. Although the difference with the market value, of course, the market value is not changing. It stays the same 20K and the same 4.8%. Yeah, that's why I want to show you this example in the sense that I say, don't focus on the asking price, focus on the value, focus on the value, focus on the value. Yeah, and of course we can help you with that to make that exercise before you make the offer, and then the appraisal will put it on paper when you go forward for the financing. Okay. Of course, you want to make a winning offer. That is really important. And so we have that price. We will have a look together with you how to define that price for the property you're looking at, because of course it depends on the specific property. And then of course you want to offer a good price, but a good price doesn't always need to be the highest price. What does that mean? The offer is a combination of different factors. Of course, if you put in the lowest price, then it's unlikely that you will win the offer. I think that's clear. A seller wants to sell at a good price, but they also want to have security. And what does that security mean? Is that, of course, you did your homework already, as I explained, that maybe you can show us a letter that you talked with the mortgage advisor, and that it is likely that you have a certain amount already that is likely to be the mortgage that you will receive based on your salary. This will help as well in giving some guarantee to the seller that if you go forward, that you are able to finance it. Yeah. It can also be that you say, okay, I make an offer of 415,000 euros. I put it conditional to receiving approval on a finance, but it will not be for the 100% of that 415. I only need like 375,000 euros. So my financial cost will be 375,000 euros. And I make a total offer of 415. That also gives a little bit security to the seller in the sense that they see that you have some own savings as well that you like to put in the property as well. That will always help to make a good offer. And of course, You also want to give them the least amount of hassle, and that means that's very easy. If they want to leave some furniture over there, then it is likely that you say, okay, for me, no problem. And if you don't need it, then you throw it away afterwards. But also the date of delivery, that is very important. The delivery date or the transfer date, that is very important for the seller, because they buy something new. They want to move out and move into the other place immediately, and they don't want to find a solution in between. Yeah. So it is a seller's market. So on that point, it is unlikely that you have a lot of potential to negotiate on that. Just ask also during the viewing, or we do that for you, of course, when they accept or expect the transfer date. And then, of course, you take that into account in your offer. Yeah. If it is not possible for you, then yeah, you need to take into account that you will need to compensate with maybe offering a better price or other conditions, because it will always play a role. And of course, that's something that is also important to mention, that if you have a transfer date that is longer than 6 months after the moment that you sign the purchase contract, that you also need to ask Erwin to take that into account, because the offer of the bank maybe is not valid anymore at that time. And so he can take that into account when asking for the offer with the bank in your specific case. Last but not least, offer personal touch. We also always add a personal client profile. And if the bids are closed, then for sure that can make a difference. And the last tip I'd like to offer you is around the due diligence. We have the technical inspector coming in the property. We have the appraiser coming in the property as well. Of course, we looked at the documents already upfront with you. But they are the experts, so important as well that they have their look on all information. And then we have a little poll. I think, Kira, you are able to start it. So my question is, do you book the experts before or after the offer is accepted? I don't see the poll on my screen, but I think Kira can follow.
Yes, I see the poll on my screen right now, and I see the votes coming in. So let's wait a little longer.
Perfect. So do we book the experts before or after the offer is accepted? Curious to know the results.
Yes, I see right now we have 11 votes, and most people think that you need to book an expert before the offer is accepted.
Yeah. That's very good, and that's why you also follow this webinar. You can book the expert before you make the offer, but the sweet spot, as you can see, is after the offer is accepted, and I will explain you why as well, of course. If you book the expert before the offer is accepted, that means that every time you say, I look at that property, I want to be 100% sure, I understand. So the expert goes to the property, makes a report for you. But that means as well that you need to pay him. A technical inspection is 435 euros. An appraisal report depends a little bit between 650, 800 euros, depending on renovation as well or not in the report. But it means that you have already a cost around 1,000 euros or more on experts. Of course, if you then make the offer and the offer is not accepted, yeah, then it is not that nice for you and your wallet, of course. So that's why we do that research together with you. Yeah? I will come to the timeline just after this slide, and then I will explain you how we do it. But so the sweet spot is after the offer is accepted. Within 1.5 weeks, they will do their research. They will also provide you the report. And then based on that information, you can sign a purchase contract, and yeah, you are secure about all technical information and about the value of the property as well. Yeah. Of course, I understand why you think about that, because you want to be sure and you want to make an offer with all possible information at hand. That's why I will explain a little bit the timeline and how we can assist you in that total process, because I think it's quite important. Of course, the first thing that you need to do is to start with the search for houses that you think are interesting. As I explained already, there is one bullet that is before that, and I didn't mention, but that's to go to your mortgage advisor or your bank, but to be sure about your budget. That's the most important. And then we search in the market. The most of us all search on Funda. That's also the place where you find the most houses to say. Sometimes we have some off-market deals. That is true. But I have to say, in today's market, that almost all listings will appear on Funda. If you say, but I always see the same selling agent, where I like a property and it's always with the same selling agent, follow their social media as well. sometimes they put a new listing over there already, like 1-2 days before they put it on Funda. So that's also interesting to do that. So you go to the search, you like the property, you book the viewing yourself or with our assistant, and then you view the property and you say, I really like that property. Then we will do two things for you. The first thing is we will do the property document review. And that's what I explained before. There are a lot of documents around the property, from legal information to technical information to, if you have an apartment, it will also be some information about VVE, it's called in Dutch, the co-ownership. All those information, we will have a review and we will explain to you what we saw in that information, if everything is there, and if there are maybe some red flags, yes or no. So the property document review, very important. The second thing that we do, and that's why I asked also the question, is that you, of course, like to know that value, and the appraiser will only come after the offer is accepted. So we do a price research, that is called. What we do in the end is a little bit the same as an appraiser will do. So we look at properties that are sold within a time span of 12 months before you make the offer. We will index them to today's values. And then, of course, we will tell you what is likely to be the value range where the property is in, the property that you're looking at. Why is that important? As I said before, that the 100% you can finance with a mortgage. And so based on that, you can see, okay, this is the value or the value range. This is expected to be my mortgage. I like to put some extra savings in there, so that's the maximum offer I can make, but also maybe the best offer I can make based on all information that I just received. Yeah, and then we draft the offer with you. I just explained how to do that. We submit it to the selling agent, and then we hope, of course, that you win and that your offer is approved. Then I just explained, we inform the appraiser and the technical inspection. They will come to the property and make their reports and share it with you. And after that, you can sign the purchase contract with all information at hand. If the purchase contract is signed, you can send that together with the appraisal report to your mortgage advisor, and he will start the mortgage application for you. There are some parties that even can have a mortgage approval within 3 days. Erwin can also inform you about that specific service. And that's really great because you see, after the signing purchase contract, you have a cooling off period of 3 days. After that moment, you can still cancel the contract without paying any penalty. If you do that after the cooling off period, then you only can back out if you have a financial clause that applies, or otherwise you need to pay 10% as a penalty. You want to avoid that, of course, but if you have a mortgage approved in 3 days, then you can still even cancel within that cooling off period. So always inform with your mortgage advisor, because that can be very important in the process, because in that sense, we can make the best offer without a financial clause in there. We do the total exercise. You will have all information at signing of the purchase contract. You send everything to the mortgage advisor, and if he says within that 3 days it's not possible, you can even cancel within the cooling off period. Normally, a normal way of going is bank or mortgage advisor. It will take around 4 weeks, but I see that with the bank, it takes a little bit more time. It's how they're organized and structured. Erwin cannot say that, but I can say that. Mortgage advisors work a little bit faster, so that's also a benefit of that. And then when the mortgage is approved, of course, we go forward with the next steps in the process. You will receive a statement of completion from the notary with, of course, the purchase price with all costs that apply, deducted from that, the deposit that you may be paid already, the mortgage that you will receive, and then the balance, of course, you will pay with your own savings. And then the last step to take is the transfer deed to sign with the notary. But as you can see, we still have an inspection just before that. It's not a technical inspection, it's just a visual inspection where we're going through the house to see that everything is empty, that everything of installations is still working, and that you can move into the property without any problems. And then we go to the notary, we sign the transfer deed, and then of course you receive the keys and can go into the property yourself. Last thing that I like to mention is that we have a liability term still. If there are some things that are not mentioned by the seller to you, not also shared in the information that we received before, and you can prove that they know, that they knew or know that defect of the house, then you can still put them liable for that. But then it's the best to take action within a short period of 2 months, because on that period, it's still likely that the court will decide in your advantage. Yeah. Let's hope we never come to that, because that's not a nice ending of my total buying process. So let's hope it stops with the transfer deed. You get the handover of the keys, and you get a little present from us and can start enjoying your property. Voila, that's my main input, I believe. And then I think it's time for some questions.
Yes, thank you very much for also sharing your knowledge, Philippe. I thought it was very interesting. I found out things I didn't know before. And I also see in the Q&A box that there are a few questions. So I think it's good to try to answer these questions together. And let's see the first question. The first question is, what are the hurdles for an unmarried couple trying to buy a property while one of the partners is not a Dutch resident, other EU country?
Is it a question for me or for Erwin?
For both of us, maybe.
Yeah.
I think
You
so.
start.
If I can start already, I had it last week as well. What you need to take into account is if you're not coming to live in the Netherlands, and you don't have your domicile then in the place that you buy, then you will not have a transfer tax of 2%, but you will have a transfer tax of 8% for the person that is not putting his domicile in the new house. So that's for sure something you need to take into account, because instead of 2%, you pay 8%. And so you need to calculate that as extra costs for the property that you're looking at.
Can you get the question back, please? Because it's now in.
Yes, I
Can you? Because
can.
I was reading it, but it was gone again. Hurdles for an unmarried
Yeah.
couple trying to buy a property. Well, as far as the mortgage is concerned, if you're registered in the Netherlands and you have a BSN, a social security number, there are actually no hurdles of getting a mortgage. Well, the same goes with Philip. It depends a little bit with the transfer tax and everything. But as far as the mortgage is concerned, there are things that you have to consider, like if you buy a cohabitation contract, for example, but it should not be a problem for getting a mortgage. So it's no problem if you're not a Dutch resident, as long as you're registered over here and you have a BSN, social security, you should be able to get a mortgage.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you, for your answers. Let's see what the next question is. And that's, let's see if I can show it. I have a question for Erwin. What if I am here on a temporary visa and I have a temporary contract? Can I still obtain a mortgage?
Yes, you can. It's the same. Well, it's probably the same answer as the question before this. Yes, you can. As long as you have the BSN and you're registered over here, you can have a mortgage. Of course, it depends on the income and everything, just like I told in my presentation. But you can obtain a mortgage.
Okay, great. Thank you for your information. Let's move to the next question. And that's, is it true that buyers aged between 18 and 35 will not have to pay the transfer tax if the purchase price of the property is below 400,000 euros?
It's a good one for you, Philip.
Yeah, I mentioned in the closing fees, indeed. So you can apply for that one time, but indeed, if you're below 35 and the house is below 400, then you don't need to take into account those transfer taxes. That's correct.
Okay.
And
great.
even maybe I can say, if you have a couple where it applies for one person and not for the other, then it's possible as well. So then it will apply for the one that doesn't need to pay any transfer tax, the other 2% on his or her share for 50%, and then in general you pay only 1% in total. Yeah. So it's per person that they will look how it can be applied.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And is it possible, instead of buying a house, to buy a piece of land and arrange building permits and construction work instead?
Yeah, for sure that is possible. But I think in the Netherlands on today, it is very unlikely that you're able to do that. Everybody's searching for land to build on, to be honest. In the Netherlands as well, you have big parties that are called the developers that buy a lot of plot of land and then to create bigger projects in one time. So it is not unlikely, and left or right, you will find something, but you will not find it at every street or every corner of the street. You will find a plot of land where you can build something on. If you see to neighboring countries, I come from Belgium myself, there it's quite easy to do that, to say, although getting more difficult in time, but still quite easy. In the Netherlands, it's not that it's not that easy to find a plot of land. That will be the most difficult part. And then if you have the plot of land, you also need to find a builder that wants to build something on that, of course. As I explained, they are looking for a lot of people in the building industry to do the work. So even on that as well, you always need to calculate the time period that it will take to finalize the total project.
Yeah. And you need permission as well, because if it's agricultural, the piece of land that you might want to buy, then you have to convert it into that you can live on it, which is quite difficult, I must say, which is quite difficult. So I think in theory you can do this, but it's quite difficult to get it arranged. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both for your information. I see that the next question is something for Erin, I think. Is the interest rate for the mortgage fixed, or can it change over time? For example, with inflation?
Yeah. Good question. Very good question. Well, when you go for the mortgage, when you see a house, you get the mortgage, then you fix your interest rate. And you could do two things. You can make it a variable interest rate, which I don't see often at this moment, I must say. Then you have a variable, and that can change every month normally. It used to be that it could change every day, but nowadays it's every month. But then you can also choose for a fixed interest rate from 1 year to 30 years. So if you want to have maximum security about your monthly payments with your mortgage, you can choose for a 30 years fixed interest rates. So it won't change in the meantime. So it can change, but only with the variable. And you can choose, on the other hand, you can choose a fixed interest term from 1 year until 30 years. So it doesn't okay. I think it's answered.
Yes, it's very clear. Thank you.
Yes.
And the next one is, Philippe mentioned a fixed service fee instead of commission. What is the fixed service fee amount, and is this all inclusive?
Yeah, so as I said, we have two different packages. You can find it on our website. We have three in the end. We have two for existing and one for new builds. As I explained already, new builds is totally different. So there you need to take contact or follow another webinar that is advised. But for our fixed fee, we have a smart package where we are more like a coach and we don't visit every property together with you. That's 2,500 euros, VAT included. And then we have the complete one where we are like the normal realtor. We come to the visits together with you, and that's at a price of 3,999 euros that we charge it. But everything is included, so our total services included. Also with the smart package, we will assist you in the total buying process, as I just explained. The only difference is there that we will not be on site together with you, but only be like a kind of a coach in a digital way via phone, email, WhatsApp, or whatever. That's the difference.
Yes, very clear. Thank you. Then let's move to the next questions. There are some good questions today. Does student loans have an effect on the amount you receive for your mortgage, or is student loans also registered at the BKR?
I think it's my question.
Yeah,
well, to begin with the last question, it is not registered at the BKR, and the first it can have an effect on the amount you can receive for your mortgage. Yes. So the first answer would be yes, and the second would be no.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we have the next question. Isn't the bidding over the market value instead over the asked value creating an artificial, I don't know if I say it right, 10% housing price increase, which results in this insane housing market bubble we are living through? The seller asks for a price, I think. Why not only pay that price?
Yeah, but I just explained it. That's a little bit going back. I don't know if I need to show it again, but the asking price in the Netherlands, like let's say, because I can compare to other countries, and that's interesting as well to see that in other countries, and I think even in Germany, that they have a certain rule you need to apply for that. that as a selling agent, if you offer the property to the market, then it needs to be within a certain percentage of the real value. Otherwise, you can get a penalty or something for that. In the Netherlands, it doesn't exist. So that means that at a certain moment in time, and I don't know the exact period anymore, but in a certain way, they always put the asking price at the value going some years back. And then in Amsterdam, they said, oh, but we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to put it a little bit lower than the value. And we ask people then to make an offer to make a bid, because there are a lot of people visiting, and we're going to make it the Amsterdam bidding system, they call it. And what did they see? That if they put the price a little bit lower, then there were a lot more viewers coming to the property. Those viewers saw the other viewers as well, and they said, oh, we need to do a little bit extra again in our offer to make a higher offer. So in that sense, the asking price, it is not based on anything, so don't take that into account. Of course, what you say is that as a result, and that's what I'm explaining as well, that of course, when people don't know exactly where is the market value, that some people want to be sure and then add a little bit extra to that. And that the prices, yeah, for sure, because of that reason as well, go up a little bit. I totally agree to that. Is it creating a bubble? I don't think we speak on today as really being a bubble, to be honest. One thing is that interest rates are low and people can finance at a low cost, to say, so they have the money and they can put it in their house. Second thing is that there is still a lack of supply, and it will for sure take 10 years to build all the houses that we need on today. And of course, as well, people have only 100% mortgage on that property, and the rest is money that they have. Erwin maybe can explain. In the past, in 2008, 2009, there was something else, because people sometimes had a loan that was higher than that 100%. And as a result, yeah, if then something goes wrong in the total market, then you really have a problem. On today, those financial problems don't exist anymore, unless Erwin is going to say something else. So we create, of course, a push on prices because of the system. That is totally correct. But I don't believe we are in a bubble at the moment. But of course, I don't have a glass ball. What is expected, if we speak with experts, they say prices will still go up this year between 15 and 17%. That is what banks like ABN AMRO and other specialists say about that. And that it is likely that next year it will go slower, and that prices will only go up with 3 to 5%. Again, that is taking into account the conditions as they are on today. If interest rates go up not until 3%, but until 5% before the end of the year, then of course the market will slow down totally and prices will stabilize. That is clear. It is still not said that prices will really go down. There are no indicators at the moment that say that prices will go down. But again, I don't have a glass ball. But that is until now, taking into account everything we know, we think that prices still will go up, but will go slower than they did the last couple of years.
Okay, very clear. Much information. Thank you. Let's see, because we have some other questions. And this one is the next. If wanting to improve on the energy rating of a home being purchased, would the amounts for these improvements be included in the mortgage amount one is approved for? Or can one apply for this loan separately or additionally?
Yeah, I'm reading the question again. If wanting to, yeah, I understand what it means. Energy labels, it's quite hot at the moment. I see a lot of people are trying to get off the gas, as I might say. Well, if you buy the house, you can have a mortgage higher, 6% on top of the mortgage to do these kinds of insulation or energy rating improvements, like for solar panels, for example, or insulation of the walls or of the floor. So you can have a higher mortgage than 100% if you want to do that. Once you're in the house, you can do it as well. So if you need 20 or 30,000 euros, you can put it on top of your current mortgage if you have the space for it. And then you can have an additional loan for it to do that. Yes. So you can do both things when buying the house, buying the property. You can get an extra loan to do these kinds of improvements. And secondly, if you already have a house, you can have an additional loan and then establishing the energy rating, better making improvements.
Okay, thank you. I also get a notification that we have 6 minutes left before the session ends automatically. So I hope we can answer the questions we have. So let's see. The next one is, you mentioned that parents could help with a tax-free donation, but then between brackets you wrote ending soon. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it still applies on today, but next year it will. So this year it was a little bit above 100,000 that parents can give to their children and not pay taxes on that. Next year it will be 26,000, and the year after it will be stopped. Of course, if you are an expat, you always need to see if it applies for you, because for Dutch people, for sure, it will apply. For expats, it's not always the case. Because it's the system, of course, of taxes on gifts, and they're often the jurisdiction of your native country will apply. So if you want to consider that option, you need to see on the specific case and in detail if it applies.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then we have the question, can the mortgage be extinguished before its end period? For example, can I apply for a 30 years mortgage and pay my monthly rate? But if at the end of the year I have extra savings, use them to pay off part of the mortgage.
Yes, you can. With most mortgage providers, you can pay off 10% on top of the monthly payment already. So if you have a mortgage of 400,000 euros, for example, then you can pay off 40,000 euros. So theoretically, in 8 or 9 years, you can have a zero mortgage. Some mortgage providers you can do 20%, but all of them at least 10%. So you can extinguish your mortgage within 8 or 9 years without a penalty. And for example, if you win the lottery and you want to pay off your mortgage at once, if the interest rate is higher than what you have, then you also can pay off your mortgage without a penalty. So it depends a little bit on the situation, but at least 10% you can pay off every year, and sometimes you can pay it off totally with some mortgage providers as well. It depends a little bit on where you're going to. So you have possibilities, definitely.
Okay, thank you so much. I see that that were all the questions in the Q&A box. I see one more question in the chat left, and that's, what happens when I want to leave the Netherlands? I mean, with the mortgage, do I need to pay back before I want to leave?
Yeah, and I think it's mine. That's my question. Well, the two things happen then. First of all, you can sell the house, and with the money you can pay off the mortgage. So if you have the mortgage 300,000 and the house is valued at 400, then you have 100,000 euros you can spend tax free. So that's one thing that you can do: sell the house, and without a penalty, the mortgage will be gone, will be paid off. Secondly, what you can also consider, if keeping the house and renting it out, there are some conditions to it. But if you stay, for example, in the Netherlands, then you can rent it out. You can rent it. What you have to take into consideration that normally this mortgage can only be 75% of the value of the market value of the house. And the interest rates are always a little bit higher, like 1% on top of it. So if you pay, for example, now 2%, then the interest rate will be 3%. So that is what you can do as well. So if you want to move, you can sell the house and the mortgage is gone. If you want to move inside the Netherlands, then you can rent it out if you want to. You can make it into, it's called a leave to let. So those are the two options that you have.
Okay, thank you. And then that were all the questions of today. So thank you, Philippe and Erwin, for answering all the questions. I thought it was a great webinar. We learned a lot, so I'm sure our viewers will say the same. For the viewers, if you have any additional questions today, you can join the table once the live session ends in the lounge, and Erwin and Philippe will be there to answer your questions. And tomorrow we will, or Jonna from the International Welcome Center in the North will send you a follow-up email with all of our contact details. So if you would like to contact us, then you can do that. So yeah, thank you everyone. That was it for tonight. I want to wish you all a wonderful evening. And I don't know if Jonna or Erwin or Philippe wants to say something before we stop.
We got 1 minute left, so I'm. Thank you very much for attending.
Yes, thank
Well,
you
thank
everybody.
you.
And yeah, if you still want more information, come to the tables or look at the website or follow all the links in the emails you will receive.
Exactly. Thank you, Kira, for hosting tonight, Erwin and Philippe, for the wonderful information you provided us. Well, as Kira said, join the gentlemen on the tables if you have additional questions, and I'll send you the email tomorrow if you want to make a free appointment with either Expat Mortgages or Expat Housing Network. From us, have a good evening. Enjoy
Have a
your
nice evening.
the rest of the day.